So if you're somebody that spends a lot of time browsing the internet, looking for various hints and tips about aerobic canoeing and techniques, which a lot of us do, one thing you're going to find is there's going to be some conflicts. And, that's a problem. It's a problem because, you may have 2, 3, 4 different coaches, all of a similar sort of ability and skill level and experience, but they could well be teaching different principles and techniques. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to go through a few things that I've seen and just sort of, lay the foundations for thought, because basically, is everybody correct, or some people not so correct, or is it different horses for courses? What is the key to this question? How can we resolve it? So I want to start with Chupuria King in New Zealand, a fantastically skilled guy with V1s and also with V6s, and highly regarded in New Zealand and around the world. And let's just have a brief listen to some of the things that he particularly picks up on. And one of the things I'm really going to focus on is the top arm, to bend it or not to bend it, And let's just see where people's opinions fall on this.
So the reason the Tahitians teach a bent elbow, or a bent top arm, as opposed to a straight top arm, is because if I was to extend my arm here and I push down with put pressure downwards, the shoulder is taking all of the stress. It's quite a weak position for my shoulder. And like I said, when they talk about using the body to derive power, we need to come forward and be able to drop our body weight on. So if I drop my body weight on like this, it's quite weak. As soon as I break my elbow, I say break my elbow, which is also bend, boom, I've got a lot more pressure now that I can put on to that pedal.
Okay, so bent top arm, Tahitians are teaching this. You see it in V1s all the time. You see it in 6-man as well. Now, the thing is, what he's really going on about here is the ability to apply body weight to that top arm, and using your chest, using your upper back and so forth, your shoulders, and then to apply that pressure, load it effectively, to load it. And now, the important thing is, when we load it with the top arm, people talk about the word push, but actually it's in the semantics, it's actually incorrect, because we're not pushing forward so much as we're pushing downward and then transversely across the body line. So be careful. I think, when you hear the word push, which you will hear, the emphasis is on downward rather than forwards.
As opposed to here, boom.
Okay.
Not only can I now drop my body weight on it, strong, but when I rotate, I'm not only pulling with my left shoulder, but I'm actually pushing with my right. So now if my target is pushing, like maybe initially pushing up and then forward and then down, the blade direction. So if you watch where my finger is pointing, this is where I'm going to be applying the power with the top hand. Boop, 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 boom, and finish. So during that phase, I'm pushing the power in the forward direction, which means the blade is going back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, pretty clear, I think. Now, let's just jump now to John Pulker and see what his take is on this.
The drill is here. You take a look, you watch your arms. Is my top arm pretty straight? I mean, for me, my habit is to bend the top arm a tiny bit. You never want to bend your top arm back to get your reach. Because if you bend it back, you're giving it somewhere to go.
Now, listen, it's important. Bending the top arm back gives it somewhere to go. Well, not necessarily. This is why you get coached. This is why you get trained. Now, if you bend it back, what John's concern is that you're going to push it forwards. that's optional, and you don't do it. You certainly don't do it at the beginning of the stroke. You might potentially do it in the middle of the stroke. That isn't a recognized technique. You may do it at the end of the stroke, also a recognized technique. But there are very specific ways to go about this. So again, let's just be clear on two guys with completely polar opposite views on this issue.
That's a bad motion. All right. Whatever you start with, you're going to finish with. If I'm out here like this, I have a lot of pressure and a lot of power coming from my lat.
Now, this is an interesting one because really, John's talking about the opposite side, the power from the lat, whereas paddling, it's the, it's the not the far side, it's the near side, the lat doing the work and the pulling motions. So this is a little confusing for me personally.
So from here, I think nail slot in, press.
Again, press. Whereas, one of the things that Mr. King talks about is using body weight, because body weight is free. It's free energy using body weight. If you simply lower the paddle in with two straight arms like this, and you apply no actual body weight, you don't get over the stroke. You're reliant purely on energy just coming from your arms, and to be fair, there isn't a great deal of energy there. This is why you do apply body weight and torque and so forth in order to get that energy, to get a really good solid catch, and then from there move through into your pull phase.
Nice solid pressure coming through. Okay, let's do like 3 more. Okay.
That should also be stated, when you're working in a static pool like this, all of the techniques being shown are very sketchy, because you're seeing the blade go in completely fully buried before he pulls. And one of the things Mr. King teaches in other videos he runs is that you are pulling even before the paddle's fully submerged. Why? Because as you fall forwards onto the blade, you're already creating lift as it enters. All right, so you're already effectively creating an into forward pull, and the deeper it goes, the greater that translates into that forward pull. But basically, you're already the idea of setting the blade deep, and then it being at the point where you're fully loaded, and then you pull. The horse is already bolted. You've missed that opportunity. So really, it's a continuation. The entry through into the catch, into the pull. Really, they're microseconds apart, and it's all sort of happening at the same time. So this is again, it ultimately becomes a point of difference. The other thing you'll see in this demonstration is how far back the paddle travels. It goes way past the hip. There seems to be pulling down the end of stroke, which will pull down the canoe, all the things that we hear about. And there are a few things that, when I look at that particular video, I think to myself, well, where is the reach? Where is the twist? Where is the drive down with the energy from the body weight? Why is the stroke so long out the back? So a lot of these things that we've spoken about in the past for the last 20, 25 years, all of a sudden seem to be negated. And I'm not quite sure how that's come about. Look, let's listen to Kamani Jain. Now, Kamani is a fantastic paddler. She's a lady that's been a coach in both outrigger canoeing and dragon boating in Canada. She's had multiple world champion in both those disciplines. She's a technician. She's really into it. She's an Olympian. She really has all the nuts and bolts there. She's very, very switched on. And just watch her delivery of a technical session.
And what it'll translate looking into partially is the moving forward versus the pull down.
So pay particular attention to the top arm, okay? And that's the thing we're really focusing on here. Notice how her top arm is absolutely cocked. Notice also that the pressure is essentially primarily downwards, all right? And her top hand doesn't actually travel that far. It only moves, from here to kind of there, all right? But the top arm is almost, well, I would say it's more technical than the lower arm. you know, and this discipline of learning the mechanics of the top and lower, so that both have optimum amounts of pressure and load, so that they are working together. One's not trying to accelerate above faster than the other. They are working simultaneously and together as a team. And you know, some paddlers have to rip it from the lower arm. Some would get it wrong and try to push from the top arm forwards. That is. But what you're looking for is this balance between loading downward and pulling backward, and that's really the key. And this idea of cocking the top arm, you know, that's the way of, you know, you're opening the window, you know, and as soon as you do this, you're actually closing the window that we talk about, the chest. So, you know, I think that again, there are different interpretations here going on.
And look at where the top bend ends up, and you're obviously
clearly also, you know, this idea if you cock the top arm, you know, somehow or other that's not going to help you with reach is just pure nonsense. And the idea that somehow you shouldn't do it because it's, you know, not a good way to attain reach is also not correct. You know, you can cock that top arm to encourage greater reach, but more than that, you actually encourage lift, because you create a greater blade angle on entry, and as a result of that greater angled top arm, you know, the blade is offset to that same degree, so that creates the lift, which, you know, is the first part of the stroke. Now, if you want to take that away, if you just want to say no, I'm not into lift, that's not something I want to do, and you want to have a very much reduced reach, then you should start questioning your blade angles, because, you know, then you need to start getting away from 13 degree and start paddling with 5 and 7 degree bends, you know, because why have that component built into the blade in the first place, other than to say, well, maybe it's going to be beneficial at the end of the stroke. But, you know, these micromanagement issues are not unimportant. And there's a lot of coaches out there trying to be very detailed and specific, as I've been for many years, both through my books and all of the clinics that I've run, and as a coaching director of Australia and working in Fiji. You know, it's all about getting down these micromanagement details. But when you see respective people at odds with one another, you know, what are you supposed to make of it? And especially when it's like in Hawaii in particular, where it's the, you know, supposedly the crucible of sort of, you know, like canoe paddling, or certainly part thereof, but Tahiti we know is still the holy grail, I suppose. You know, then you've got to wonder. And a lot of people go to websites, they're looking for the information, they're seeing what's going on in Hawaii, say, oh yeah, that's how you must do it. But, you know, let's not forget, a lot of what is brought into Hawaii has made a massive difference to their to the way that they think, because they were somehow restrained by dogma. But, you know, other countries didn't care. They just decided to adapt and do whatever they could to go quicker. I mean, the Tahitians are a good example of that, where dogma's never been an issue with them. They've just decided to, you know, embrace double bend paddles, for example, you know, and to move with the times in any way possible to go fast. Another famous chap here, Manny Vincent, you know, one of the elders of canoe paddling in Hawaii.
You this here? No, some people doing it. Watch me. Danny fool.
Correct. You don't want to do that. No one's advocating that. No one's saying bend that top arm, then go poof like that. The purpose of bending the top arm has nothing to do with the idea that I want to then do that so that I can push. That's not what it's about. Bending that or cocking the arm, elbow down, is all about compression. You're getting the compression, getting blade angle at the entry. Very, very different. Now, Tahitians years ago, maybe the mid-90s, they would get midway through the stroke, and by using a double bend, they would take advantage of the mechanical crank, or the advantage that existed within the double bend in those days, which was a much harder bend, by the way. But they would literally get to the mid part of the stroke, and there would be a slight push and pull. And they took advantage of that. Not a problem. Today, you kind of see it a little bit later in the stroke rather than, say, in the middle. But, you know, it's still a component of how they paddle.
Like this. Because your entry is here. Okay? When you do it.
So Manny's still showing a falling forwards. He's still falling onto his blade, and it's that falling, you know, which gives you momentum. It gives you free energy. It's money for nothing. You know what I mean? It's against just, you know, using the arms and going planting like that. If you're just planting, good luck with that. I mean, you just can't generate the same energy because there just isn't the lack of commitment there. And you've got, you know, for all the girls out there, for the young paddlers, for lightweight guys, you know, if you're not applying some form of dynamic paddling style and you want to paddle quite statically, it's going to work against you. That's it, period. It's not going to help you. It's going to work against you. You need to learn effective dynamic paddling technique. You need to learn to use body weight. It's not a bad thing. You know, the only place it's a bit weird is when you come to V1 paddling, because if you apply too much body weight, which is difficult, in fact you almost don't do it at all, there's a lot more arms in V1, because you can't go beyond your center line too much and apply this weight, because you will take the canoe offline. You've got to be quite static in terms of where you sit, your center of effort and gravity, and how that relates to the center of buoyancy of the bar. But so you don't get these big reaches and these huge, you know, sort of thunderous, sort of explosive sort of energy on the entry, because you don't want to throw the canoe offline. So that's different. Yeah, it's more a stroking, sensual kind of nurturing thing rather than beating the hell out of it when you're putting C1 or C1. So, you know, like I say, horses for courses here. But look at these two examples. You know, here's one where Mr. King is reaching out at the setup. The top arm is cocked, the lower arm is more or less extended, and now he will bend that slightly as he enters, as he falls forward and enters. But he will fall forwards from there, lowering the leading shoulder. He'll make a connection. As he does that, he's instantly created a lift situation. He's instantly got greater reach. The stroke is already very much underway. And then from there, he's got the top bent, cocked arm, and then he can load that up with the pressure going downward, well, very slightly forward, then downward, to create this momentum and this power that we're speaking of. And if you compare that below with John, taken from a recent clip that he made, you know, this idea of padding in that way, they couldn't be further apart. They are chalk and cheese. They're miles and miles apart, you know. So one is teaching, there's very little reach there. There's very little lift going to happen. The top arm is straight. It's closing down the body. You know, how can you get over the stroke from that situation? How can you apply downward pressure in that situation? Where is the rotation? So all I would say is, you know, with the greatest respect to John, I mean, this is not having a go at him. Please don't think I'm doing that. What I'm saying is I need answers, and I think we all need answers, because when you get high-level paddlers around the world teaching something different, and perhaps they're not being as listened to as John, one has to answer the question as to why. It's not insignificant. You've got people who are world champions in multiple disciplines from around the world teaching something different. Why is it that all of a sudden we need something from Hawaii, which is perhaps in conflict? Anyway, it's just food for thought. You know, I'm sure everyone's going to have a great talk about this, but it's not insignificant. So, in summary, bending the top arm is not a massive issue. The issue is don't push it forward. Just because it's bent doesn't mean it has to have somewhere to go. The place it's going to go, by the way, is to act as a load-bearing mechanism for going downwards and transversely across the body line. That's what it's for. Okay, that's enough. Thank you.